very good morning to everybody, and depending on where you are in the world. If you're in South Africa, it's good morning. If you're elsewhere, good day, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to our IITPSA Special Interest Group in Artificial Intelligence and Robotics webinar. That's a mouthful. Try and say that 10 times fast. So welcome to everybody. A very warm welcome to our special guest this morning, Dr. Jacques Ludik, and of course to our webinar host, Johan Steyn, who is our IITPSA Chapter Chairperson of the Special Interest Group in Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, and also our Gauteng Chapter Chairperson. So welcome, Johan. Welcome, Dr. Jacques. To our delegates who are busy joining us at the moment, good to have you with us this morning, bright and breezy and early at 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning. Welcome. I'm going to hand over to Johan to introduce our guest and to take the webinar forward. But Johan and Jacques, I will be here if you need me, as usual. I'll be monitoring the chat and so on. So to our delegates, please feel free to use the chat group to say hello. Let us know where you're joining us from. If you're joining from outside of South Africa in particular, we'd love to know that. And post your questions and comments so that we can keep the conversation going. Over to you, Johan and Dr. Jacques.
Tony, thank you so much, as always, to you and your team at the IITPSA for helping us have these webinars, for all the marketing and the work behind the scenes. Thank you so very much. I'm very excited today to welcome Dr. Jacques Ludik to our conversation. I have followed Jacques' work for a long time, and we communicate quite often, and I really look up to Jacques as a thought leader in this field. And he started a number of companies and initiatives, and it always makes me so proud to hear about the actually quite a great amount of organizations in South Africa who are doing world-class work in the era and in the field of smart technology. A little bit about Jacques. He is the founder and the CEO of Cortex Logic and the Cortex Group. He is the founder and president of the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, the founder of Sapiens.network, and an author, and one of his latest books is called Democratizing Artificial Intelligence to Benefit Everyone, Shaping a Better Future in the Smart Technology Era. And I'll put that Amazon link in the chat box. Jacques, good morning. Welcome. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning to you as well, Johan. Thank you, Tony, for the introduction as well. Great to be here. Looking forward to the webinar.
Thank you, Jacques. One of the things I've learned from you is, and I've been using it a lot, is to rather speak of the smart technology era as opposed to the fourth industrial revolution. What is the distinction there, and why would you prefer we use the word smart technology era?
Yeah, I do have some slides that actually kind of describes it as well, because we actually live in an interesting era where you see the fusion of a number of smart technologies, of which artificial intelligence is one. It's an exponential technology. But what's actually interesting, we sit in an interesting time where you see the information and digital revolution being expanded by smart technology as well. So, and I think they talk about the fourth industrial revolution, but I think it's not just industrial. It's clearly, there's a digital revolution also impacting the industrial revolution. And it was clear that the industrial revolution also impacted initially the digital revolution as well, or information revolution. So I think it's an interplay, and because it's so pervasive, it really covers all sectors, all parts of economies and so forth. I think it's probably more an apt term to talk about a smart technology era. And I actually have a slide, and maybe it's I can maybe quickly show that to you. So I've got one slide that just, let me just quickly show, talking about the smart technology era. And this particular one, where if you look at business and you think about value being unlocked over time, and you can see there's various industries. There's agriculture and fishery and metals, and then on top of that, there was the industrial and financial sectors where lots of value is being unlocked. And then from 1995 to 2019, you saw the internet era, where you see, and now we see the biggest tech companies in the world are internet or technology-driven companies. And because we've instrumented the world, we entered the smart technology era, or what people call it the AI era. This is what SoftBank, this is actually a slide from SoftBank and how they see the world. And AI is kind of a proxy here for smart technologies. And this is kind of a slide that kind of summarizes this for me as well.
Jacques, before we get to some of the societal things, which is a passion of mine too, let's maybe touch a bit on what you do. So Cortex Group, Machine Institute, and so forth. So maybe just take a few minutes of talking us through all the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, and you know what? When I started Cortex, the focus was really on AI-driven enterprise solutions to big corporates, especially here in South Africa, and across multiple spectrums. So it was in retail, finances, minerals, metals, mining. My previous AI company that I sold to General Electric, Season Systems, we predominantly focused on the minerals, metals, mining, manufacturing industries worldwide. So obviously we capitalize on that know-how, expertise, also in Cortex Logic. But then what we did over the last few years is to transition from a pure just AI enterprise play to an AI-driven platform play, where you can get a lot more scale and also have more impact. So our current focus is really on health wellness, financial wellness. We actually have an app called Vive Teams that will be launched in partnership with Media24 on the 2nd of September. Very exciting about this. Media24 is our media partner on that. But that is focused on a personal wellness companion for teenagers. And we've got incentives built in with cryptocurrency, the Vive token, and all sorts of different exciting things where we actually use kind of almost like a fusion of these smart technologies. Because blockchain and cryptocurrency is another very important technology that can make a big difference. So we're utilizing that smart technology stack to a large effect. And we do the same with Journey Wellness, which is more kind of a holistic wellness type of platform, where we've got very specific focus on wellness insights and fitness and exercise and financial wellness and all of those pieces. And we're also bringing in cryptocurrency there as well. And for me, it's about how can we democratize digital healthcare. And I think if you look at some of the best applications, if you look at the list of applications where you can make the biggest impact, I would say healthcare and education is two massive areas. And that's why we focus on that. I've also invested in a company called the Student Hub, which is obviously an educational play, and NASPAR's also invested there. That's kind of the education track. Obviously in healthcare and wellness, there's lots of education also that needs to happen there. So it needs to be content driven and so forth. So that is very much part of the focus. And then I would say on the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa front, it's a non-profit. The focus is really very much along the activities that you're also involved in. How can we shape that better future? How can we build capacity in Africa? How can we help transform Africa, empower people with smart technology, helping people to adapt to this new era in a better way? So we are also CETA accredited, so we can provide training courses in data science and machine learning. So that's quite exciting. Yeah. So for me, these business, Cortex Logic and with Vive Teams and with Journey, it's all vehicles to actually make a difference and help shape that better future. And show how technology can be used for social good, for better outcomes. And it's our little contribution to make a difference there. And we're obviously trying to be impactful and also scale Africa and scale international with the solution. So very exciting. That's kind of in a nutshell. Happy to address any more questions on that.
Certainly, Jacques. Thank you. Sapiens.network, I quickly wanted to touch on that.
Yes. Hey, Sapiens, I actually have some slides on that. I would love to talk about that as well. I see incredible potential for Sapiens. So maybe what I will do is, can I quickly talk about that? Because I would love to talk about the massive transformative purpose as well, because you will see how Sapiens actually addresses that very, very well. But I'm just going to quickly jump to, sorry, I've got there's a few slides, exciting slides that I would love to cover as well as we go on. So if we think about Sapiens as such, it is, let's just quickly go there. There we go, I've got it. So it is a human-centric, user-controlled, AI-driven super platform. And I'm also going to explain why I think it's needed, and something like this is needed. Because we do sit with tech giants and social media platforms that pretty much dictate a lot to users as well. Users are not necessarily in control, and not necessarily in a position to monetize their data and services as well. It's actually the tech giants that's capitalizing on your data as well. So what I'm proposing with Sapiens specifically is we're bringing personalized AI agents that not only empowers individuals. So instead of having with the tech giants have their own AI agents, recommendation engines, and they drive basically. I don't want to say it's manipulation, but it touches on that. If we've got something that's really batting for us, trying to protect us and also empower us and monetizes our data and services, and then also within our further groups, if you think about within families, within virtual groups, within companies, in communities, cities, city-states, you can actually spread it out as well. And you've got these AI assistants that's really batting for the individuals and also for the various organizations. I think we can get to a better scenario. And what I specifically, the reasons for this, the question is, why Sapiens? And I know we're going to talk about this massive transformative purpose for humanity and in its goals. But the way I'm looking at this is, first of all, it addresses a huge gap in the market and society that, as there's currently no global solution of this nature at scale to make lives easier and more optimal for the user. So that's the first point. Currently, we sit also with very fragmented apps and platform business ecosystem worldwide, especially in the West. We know in China, you do have like the WeChat. We've got these super platforms there. What I'm envisioning is not platforms that's being controlled by tech giants or by governments, but that is decentralized, obviously using blockchain technology as well, where you actually empower people and make sure that the benefits of AI and applications can also be spread to the individuals, to the stakeholders, to people that participate. And the other big thing for me is, and I do see some specific solutions there is, but not a global solution. I don't see solutions where the user has full control of their own data with proper privacy and governance without being exploited, controlled, or manipulated in some way. So that is the issue. So how can we use smart technology for beneficial outcomes? For me, the other thing is, I think Google and some of the tech giants will also try to come up with services where they actually provide people with AI agents, but we don't see it yet. So there is an opportunity to actually come with a service that's that you provide each person with their own personalized AI agent that learns for them, that helps to optimize things for them, and then monetize their data and services. And then you can spread it out, as I've said. So I've got some more slides that goes a bit more details around what it does and how it can optimize things and so forth. And maybe to finish off this particular discussion on this, so what I'm looking at here, if you look at a single node for an individual user, so each user, we know data is the new oil. Data is so crucial, and we generate as we instrument ourselves. In the future, I think even from a healthcare perspective, we're going to be a lot better instrumented. There's going to be so much data available about us, our activities, our behavior, all of those kind of things. So I think data is crucial, and it's everything that captures my lifestyle, everything that I'm doing. So it's my data. If you can secure that, manage that, and you've got control of that, that's huge. And then you've got an AI assistant that interacts with my data, but also interacts with my digital connections. And then I've got a whole list of things that this AI assistant can do to proactively optimize my life and mention all the things that I've mentioned before. So there's quite a bit to uncover here and to talk more about this, but I'm quite excited about this. As soon as I'm finished with the audiobook recordings and stuff, there will be a lot more communications on this, and I will talk more about how this could work within a broader ecosystem with businesses and users and service providers and so forth. But very exciting. Sorry, long answer, but that's
good. Jacques, that's exciting. I want to touch on the application in our own country. During the session today, here and there, I'd just like to do a few shout-outs as I recognize names. One of our delegates today is Professor André Karlitz from Nelson Mandela University, Department of Computer Sciences. So Prof. Karlitz, welcome. We'll get to some others and shout-outs soon. Jacques, as in the intro, I spoke about the fact that there are many organizations doing great work. In commerce, when it comes to smart technology, but also for societal good, it does seem quite fragmented and that they're not all working together. So if you take this, the slides that you've just shown us, and if we look at what do we all together need to do, because every one of us on this webinar today have some influence and some network, what do we need to do? And let me almost ask, where are we at the moment from a smart technology era point of view as South Africans? And what do we need to do? And it's most likely that answer could fill the whole webinar, but let's take it from there.
100%. And what I try to do with the book as well, I've tried to make sense, because there's so much information out there in terms of what thought leaders are saying as well. So I've got my own thoughts and you've got your own thoughts, and I think there's lots of interesting ideas. But people have been thinking about this, and the book I'm trying to synthesize and bring it all together. I think it's probably at multiple levels. There's things that we can do. On the individual level, I think we can make sure that we can run with the machines, that we can empower ourselves, that we empower our families, our children, the people around us, the people that we can influence. Also make sure, as if you're company owners or involved in companies, if you've got to influence there, or organizations, is think carefully about, we're sitting on exponential curves and we see how the world is changing. How can we adapt quick enough? Because it's about 21st century skills. We need to have those. We need to be comfortable with change. So we need to change those kind of mindsets. But we've got to think carefully about, obviously when you think about jobs and all of those kind of things. So for me, it's also a much broader thing. We need really all stakeholders to communicate, because there needs to be a shift in priorities of economic, political, education systems, to empower individuals to stay ahead in the race with the robots or the machines and so forth. We obviously need to develop policies to assure that development of AI is directed to social good or augmenting humans, not replacing them. How can we be augmented? And then we need to improve human collaboration across borders, stakeholder groups. So I think the things that you are also doing, that I'm also doing, I think, is very important building blocks. And we need a lot more people to interact, to communicate, to talk about the positives, the negatives, the risks, and so that we navigate us in the right direction. And we can take responsibilities, and it starts with communities as well. And that's why I'm talking about Sapiens. If I go through the massive transformative purpose for humanity, you will see that I think my conclusions of everything I've read and the way I'm making sense of it, I think the future should be more local and more human centric, and we can create that future and use smart technologies just as tools to help us with that. We can use smart technology to help create abundance. I think a Star Trek economy is possible, but we shouldn't be our own biggest enemies in that. So we need to have the big picture in mind. Think about humanity as a whole. I'm also, I know people are nationalistic and think about individual groups, but we actually all, humanity is connected via the internet. We've got this nervous system. Things that happen in China, things that happen in Europe, in Luxembourg, in US, in Argentina, all of the places affect one another in some way. The economy is anyway connected. We've created this world, this very connected world. And the problems that we face is global in nature. Look at climate change. You can't just try and do something. You can do something here, but you've got to do it in collaboration with other countries, other people. So I think even if everything is said and done and we do the right things, we're going to be a more united humanity. that's going to be the better outcome. There's no question about it. And we can see also how easily we can connect with people that think like us from other countries as well. And we've got lots of friends and so forth. So I think that human collaboration is massively important. And it's almost like we're going in the wrong direction if we say South Africa first or America first and those kind of things. So obviously you want to look locally at your people. And I think it's very important. It's very important to preserve cultures, all of those kind of things. But we can do it in a balanced way and still be connected. That's why I'm more local, more human-centric. I would love to see more decentralized, therefore, and user-controlled. And I've got very specific policies and things that I want to suggest around that. In terms of your question, how far is South Africa? We are really at the bottom of where we haven't tapped. We just have a Fourth Industrial Revolution Commission. We've started with things, but we haven't really implemented things. I would love to see one of the best things that we can do at scale is to educate people with smart technology, with 21st century skills, and equip them, empower them with smart technology related skills so that they can actually be empowered to unlock the potential. Just think how many people sit out there that almost feel there's no hope, or they don't see a future. They don't see in 5 years, 10 years, I can actually do this. And that's my mindset, because I know we can do it and we're doing it. But can we democratize smart technology so that more people are empowered to actually do that? And I would say governments, it's got such an important role. I feel almost the last decade was the lost decade in terms of that. And we've got opportunities every day to move the needle. And I know we're dealing with COVID. There's so many problems and stuff, and we need to deal with that. But there's still choices that we can make to actually fast track us in the right direction. Otherwise, we're going to be kind of left behind, and we don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want to be this kind of left behind part of humanity. I think it's not good for humanity to have because you also create more risk here if you do have that, because we are connected. Anyway, so I can go on and on. There's so much to discuss on this stuff.
Thanks, Jacques. A quick shout out to Neville Cousins from Business Process Enablement South Africa, the IITPSA. They are one of the organizations that I think we should all work closer with. I mean, they do a lot of work around making sure that local people and youngsters are employed. If we think of business process outsourcing, call centers and the like, again, many of these organizations that we can all work closer with. Jacques, the next question could have a political answer, but I think let's just have a realistic answer.
Okay.
My personal sense, is that the ruling party's existence depends on the amount of people who get social grants. So why would, and this is just what I wonder, why would government really push for this digital divide to be addressed, for more and more young people to enter the workforce? So and I might be wrong, and I'm sure you can't say government as a whole. I'm just wondering, are we, how can I put it, spitting against the wind when it comes to social upliftment across the board in our country using this technology, if it seems, if I'm right, that we won't have that support from government? And again, we don't have to politicize it, but reality,
Yeah, so I think, do you know what? If I even look at United Nations 2030 vision, you can't fault that. You can't fault the SDGs. And I've got specific goals that I've got for the massive transformative purpose for humanity. If South Africa could adapt that, that would be unbelievable, because that will make a big difference. So I think what's happening with this in terms of social grants and so forth, I think there's probably a tactical play, strategic play. It's a power play with governments, and we see this across the globe. So it's not just here in South Africa. We sit with our own specific issues and problems as well, and sometimes. So basically what we need here is visionary leadership to say, let's look at the big picture. And this is where, and also longer term, and this is what you can admire. We can always complain about China and what they do, and there's many things that I'm not happy with, but there are things that also make sense. They do have kind of a long-term view on things. And even though they say, I don't want to. They talk about edutech companies that needs to be non-profit organizations, and it's kind of disrupt things there and so forth. But they're also wary of tech giants having too much influence. So there needs to be a balance. But you want to have governments and tech giants and industry and people. You need to have a nice balance between all of it. The citizens need to be empowered as well. So I've got specific solutions where you say you need to empower the citizens more and forget this power play. So, and it's really unfortunate if social grants and those kind of things are being used as part of a power play scenario as well. So I think we need to be, it's part of sense making, but we need to be honest, and we think about everyone there at the street, every person there. How can we move the needle from here to there and make really a difference and ignore political plays and difference? I think we need to go a step above it. We need to step above it, and we need to think about, and this is what I'm also advocating for, is character building and virtues and so forth. And if our leaders can be embodiment of that and really back, I've got the citizens' interests at heart here. I'm not going to just try and be in power as well. So I think there's lessons to learn, but it starts with the individuals. It starts with individual leadership within the governing parties, and I think it's across the globe. It's unfortunately, I would love to see countries doing it right, but there's not even one country that's getting it perfectly right. There's some good. US has done some good stuff, but they're also struggling. The China's doing some good stuff, but they're also making some moves that's very questionable. And you can talk about each country in Africa as well. There's so much more that we can do, the African countries. And we see Rwanda, you see Kenya. There's countries that's trying to adopt and move fast with smart technology. And they set some examples. And we can learn. South Africa can learn from that as well. Yeah, so it's, I've got actually one of the goals, the NTP goals, where I talk about also a balance between population growth and population decline. And you see in China, if you just go to one-child policy, now suddenly you say, oh, we can't sustain the growth, and you've got all sorts of issues. You don't have enough women to match the men, all sorts of issues. So you've got to be very careful. But also you've got to be also careful with population growth, where you say, because it's about quality of life. What do we want to optimize? We want to maximize quality of life as far as possible. So I talk quite a bit about that, and the NTP for Humanity, we can maybe talk about that as well.
Super. I want to quickly just look at a comment and two questions, Jacques, and then after that I definitely want to get to massive transformative purpose. A quick shout out again to Lenore Carringham, who has been working in many fields, but I got to know her from a robotic process, smart automation perspective, and we often have these chats. How do we compete better by automating and not leave our people behind? You've mentioned females. I don't know if Yolandi is on the call. I can't see her. She leads the women in IT chapter. In fact, I'm chatting with her a little bit later today to see how can we as a Gauteng chapter not work closer with them. But these are relevant and real issues. Comments from Tushar Das, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly. Your sapiens concept is really a need of time. Excellent. Doing it my way, avoiding manipulation of tech giants is really needed. So that's a good comment, Tushar. Maybe if we can take the two questions that I see here together, Jacques. Neville from IITPSA says, is identity management planned for sapiens and AI assistants? And then Prof. Carlett says, or asks, is the AI assistant similar to your digital twin? So identity management and digital twin. Interesting question.
Great questions. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Even in applications with season systems and Cortex, we are in the business of, as you instrument businesses or you instrument processes or equipment, you can create this digital twin, which is like, you instrument just means you've got lots of sensors around that, lots of data. Because of that, you can create models that simulate a business or a process or a piece of equipment, and then you can very quickly optimize that as well. So I think when you talk about digital twins, then clearly with humans, and this is the world we're going into, there's no question about it. We just imagine a world where you've got you're instrumented. You've got sensors in your bloodstreams. You've got all sorts of things. You would know 10 years before it actually happens that you can potentially have cancer or have a disease, and you can be you can be preventative around this. We can go from sick care to really healthcare, where you actually look after yourself and improve the quality of life as well. But not only that, if you've got, just think about all your interactions with our cell phones. We are actually instrumenting ourselves as well. I've got smartwatch here, so I'm tracking that. I'm tracking my sleep patterns. Not everybody's doing it, but this is just a little look into what will be in the future, because this stuff will be very cost effective and scalable going forward. And then we will instrument more people. So the instrumentation is there. So the question is, what do we do? So we are going to generate so much data in our homes, in our cars, wherever we work, our bodies. Just think about all the data that we can assemble from all of this and our interactions as well. And if you've got an AI system that say, I'm going to bat for you. I'm going to help optimize your quality of life based on all the information, your health, your finances, all sorts of stuff. That is a future where smart technology is making a difference in my life. And I think also we need to, and that's why I've got a chapter in the book that talks about what does it mean to be human in the 21st century. We can be human-centric. Why do we need to change who we are? We are biological, this is who we are. Just use tools to help us. The other point was about digital identity, and I think that's why it's so important. If other people control my data, and I don't have control over my digital identity, and say governments control it, and that could be a big problem. It could be a really bad scenario for the world. If you've got, say, digital dictatorship, who wants to live in a world where at least when I don't have technology, I can go there in a bush and I can do what I want. I've got freedom. I think freedom and privacy is important. But if someone controls all my data, who I am, that is like George Orwell, Big Brother, thought police scenario. That is by far worse. So that's why we're actually at a predicament here where things could go really wrong, and it could be going fantastic. It could be utopia. It could be a protopia as well. So that's why we need visionary leadership. Anyway, let's discuss this.
Jacques, before we get to another question, let's touch on this massive transformative purpose.
Yes.
Because that's the one thing I read more and hear more you say than anything else, and I love it. But if you could, in a nutshell, but what does it mean?
I will do it. I've got actually some specific slides on that. So what I will do is I'm going to be very, very quick on this, but I think it's very important. The reason for this is I think we do have United Nations that comes up with stuff, but I also commented on some of the SDGs where I see some shortcomings. And I think what it's about, as individuals, we want to be, I think it's important to have a purpose. And it's great to have a purpose that's transformative. And if it's a massive transformative purpose, it's something that could be impactful as well. So companies, and you will see this especially from Singularity.net, they talk about MTPs, Peter Diamandis, and lots of other people as well. If you look at Elon Musk, in terms of he's got his own massive transformative purpose as well, very specific questions, and he's executing on that. And that's pulling people together as well. And I think if we have individual purposes and we've got community and purposes for humanity, this could more unite us, especially if people can agree on that as well. So what I want to do here is very, very quickly. I've got a kind of a summary slide, and if people want to go into more detail, because clearly we're not going to go into all of it because it's quite a bit of stuff. But it's worthwhile. I'm going to have some more podcasts on this and kind of expand on this quite a bit. But I think it's really instrumental. So I start with this statement where one can evolve it. This is just a proposal. One can modify it. We need to evolve a dynamic, emphatic, prosperous, and thriving, self-optimizing civilization that benefits everyone in sustainable ways and in harmony with nature. So that's a mouthful. So what is that? What does that really mean? So I've broken this up, and we can maybe just there's goals that I can quickly go into as well. But this slide here kind of summarizes the essence of that. So I'm looking at this on a systems level, a quantity level, a quality level, and a place level. So on a systems level, what does this mean? And each of these have specific goals that complement the SDG, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So first of all, we need to think holistically about our systems. That's why we need all stakeholders to help get there. And maybe we should show examples of fabrics, create blueprints of how it works. So first of all, it needs to be done, and this is my belief, through decentralized, adaptive, and agile economic, social, and governance systems. And I think with the blockchain technology, with the decentralization, with AI, with the data, with the Internet of Things, we actually can create systems like that, economic, social, and governance systems that are agile, that are decentralized, that are adaptive. But now what does it need to do? It needs to reward active participation and positive contributions to society and civilization. Even if you think about the future of work and so forth, even if we get to universal basic income and all sorts of different things, and I think cryptocurrency and blockchain, all of it can play an interesting role. We've got some interesting ideas. But if you can reward people for active participation and positive contribution to society and civilization, that could be a form of remuneration for them as well. But we also still need governance. You can't have anarchy. So you've got to have a balance. Everything is a balance in life. So you still need systems to keep peace and protect your humanity. And we've got dangerous stuff. You think about cyber threats, or you think about climate change or nuclear, or think about bio threats as well. There's so many problems potentially for us. So we need to be protected. And I say in elastic ways, because sometimes, say it's COVID-19, we need a little bit more control in that state, but we need to be elastic when we don't have that kind of problems, where people can go back to freedom. And we don't have governments exploiting the fact that they had to control things better or more tight. So it needs to be elastic in that way. So for me, absolutely critical is respect for individual freedom and privacy. So that's why my problems with digital dictatorship is where you don't have that. So on a systems level, that's hugely important. And then quantity, just to summarize, and I'll be quick with this, we can say, how can we use knowledge, science, smart technology, other tools? How can we democratize that in optimal ways, human-centric ways that are based on wisdom, good values, and ethics? And we're always going to have problems. How can we use that to dynamically solve problems, create opportunities in abundance, and share the benefits with everyone? So that should be there. So we can create, that's why I call quantity. And there's wisdom there. You can see those kind of icons that I'm using there. And then quality, for me, this is really, if you think about what does it come back to, you think about our meaning of life and purpose and all sorts of stuff, we want to try and maximize quality of life. And I think community building is huge. It's almost like we're struggling with doing that. I think virtues and character strength development is very important. Sense making. I think people struggle with the information overload. If you've got AI agents and stuff that can help you with sense making and all of it, it will be important, incredibly important. It could be actually critical for your health as well, because if you act on the wrong information and you live your life by certain things that you think is true, which is not true, not in line with reality, you're going to pay a price. So standard of living, well-being, meaningful living for everyone, very important. And then finally, obviously, we live on planet Earth, and we want the best possible livable habitat, not only for ourselves, for all living organisms and the environment and our place in the universe. So anyway, so I've got, there's more. There's actually, just to give you an idea, there is for each of these dimensions here, I've got very specific goals in terms of what it means, and one can dig into that, but I'm not going. And I'm commenting on the SDGs, where they're fitting, but also where they potentially there's an issue with that. But people can go through this. They can read the book. I'm going to have a lot more discussions on this. I think it's pretty important. And maybe just want to end with this thing here. We want to give each child the opportunity to maximize quality of life, and then the building, sense making, well-being, meaningful living, all of those kind of things. You want to optimize those kind of things. So that's kind of, and I know this is also close to your heart in terms of your the initiatives that we've been talking about. But anyway, yes. Yeah.
I want to we normally have these sessions till 9. We've booked till 9:30. We don't have to go that long. But what we'll do, if we start seeing some delegates drop off because they might have 9 o'clock meetings, then we'll maybe cut it down a bit. There is a question, Jacques, around whether we can share these slides, that link you've sent us. Are you happy with that?
Most welcome.
I'm going to quickly, everyone put that link. I think it's a Dropbox or Google Drive link in the chat box, so you guys will see the link there. Because again, there's so much in these slides that's worth going through, and it's going to take some time. As I've spent quite a bit of time on it, Jacques. I want to get to the book, but before that, I want to quickly look at a question from Francois Seegers, and just a shout out to him. He works with Blue Turtle, local organization that's also doing interesting work in the smart technology era, in the smart automation space. So, Francois, good to see you on the webinar. His question is adoption of AI or smart technology a block for companies to grow due to union influence, specifically around job creation? And I think if we think of our local banks in particular, again, whether it's firstly there's the ethical and moral issue around getting rid of people, but then there's the business reality, the environment we work in. So what if you can't upskill people and you have to cut headcount in unionized? What advice would you give your banking clients, for instance, on this?
Listen, this is obviously when you think about a business, they need to survive and they need to deploy smart technology to help make them more efficient. So I fully understand. If you think of also the man-machine intelligence continuum, I've got a slide on that as well, that talks about assisted, augmented, and autonomous intelligence. We can see a lot more of that. We already see with robotic process automation, you see that we can create efficiency, and potentially, you might need less people in call centers as well because of that type of thing. So I think what one needs to do is, and I do talk about, I've got a chapter in the book that talks about AI-driven digital transformation and how do we do this responsibly. And I think when you implement any AI kind of solution, you can't just think about the solution, the technology part of it. You got to think about the people, the processes, the impact. When you implement something like that, you also need to think about its impact, its effect. How do I empower the people that's impacted? How do I adopt their roles, their jobs, their tasks within jobs to work with the technology in smart ways and make sure you skill them up as well? So I think there's a responsibility that banks and companies have to say, can we, in our world, do this right? We're still human-centric, we still empower the individual, but still get the benefit of AI to actually become more efficient, more productive, all of it. And I know it's kind of, so one shouldn't be short-sighted here in terms of cost. And obviously one needs to be adaptive and agile, and it won't be a perfect solution. I think, but I think one needs to look at the 5 pillars, as I've mentioned. You look at the strategy, you look at the people, processes, data technology, and see how everything is being impacted as you implement these kind of solutions. But I do delve into that quite a bit. I also talk about the AI-driven workplace, human-centric workplace, the last section in chapter 11. And that's worth, I've really, apart from my own thinking there, I've really done some research and got really good insights there that could help steer people in. It's very condensed. There's lots of good information. That's why I'm going to unpack each part, each section as well. So great question. Yeah.
And Jacques, I remember when I read through your book, I think the day it was on Amazon, you sent me a message and I downloaded it. But firstly, it's a book you don't have to read from finish to start. Because there are specific sections, but also there's so much to think about that I read a lot, but I'll read a section and then I said, no, I need to go have a scotch now and just go think through all this stuff, or hopefully if it's early in the day, a coffee and not a scotch. But so definitely I want to talk more about the book. What I do want to do is maybe quickly just go to another shout out and question from Prof. Maria Kiet from UCT. I'll read the question now, but okay. it's close to my heart. I wrote a piece in Business Day a few weeks ago. It was called In the Digital World, My Face is Mine No More. And today on IT Web, a little later on, you'll see a piece called Our Biometric Future. Because again, when I think about my son, what's his facial recognition going to do to him, and so forth. But this is a very relevant question from Prof. Keert. There have been several issues with some of the AI applications, including the use of enabling the so-called surveillance capitalism, very relevant. It acts out as an anti-democratic force. How would you suggest to address that? More policy, more ethics training, or some other way? Because I think, Jacques, it's here to stay, biometrics surveillance, but how do we rein it in? And can we? Or is it already too late, do you think?
I think this is why I've got this one slide where I talk about this runaway train. It's maybe I should show that. But before I start, but I think it's here to stay. There's no question about it. I don't. It's almost like we can't get technologies here, so we need to adapt. It's almost adapt or die, a kind of scenario. That's why, and I think we are at a critical juncture, because you will see governments seeing this as a way to give them more power, to do good things as well. It could be under the veil, they can see the intentions. We actually, it's like with China, they're trying to say we're doing this to protect our citizens, and this is in the best interest of China going forward, and so forth. But it's a real concern in China. I worry about the vigils that sit there in China, and I think we do have a real big issue there as well. So this is the slide that this is kind of a little visual. Extremely dangerous times where it's critical to think on our feet and make the right choices to not only save our lives and get control of the situation, but also shape a better future of all of humanity. So there's urgency here, and your question is it too late? I don't think it's too late. But because we're sitting, as humans, we used to see time linear. We're sitting on exponential curves where things suddenly happen quickly, and we are suddenly surprised. And we can easily end up in a world. And I do have a section in the book that talks about the current civilization is in a problematic trajectory. Where we struggle with sense making. We see it in US, we see it internationally, meaning making, wealth gaps, job loss, catastrophic risk, all of these kind of things, discrimination and stuff. And what Professor Maria Keert is saying is absolutely true. It is with all the great that you can achieve with smart technology, it could actually create a really bad future for us as well. So, and it is there. So that's why I'm driven by, I'm passionate about it. I know you're also passionate about this and how we can use smart technology and direct it navigate things for social good and augmenting humans. I think it's absolutely critical. So, and that's why I'm talking about visionary leadership, collective sense making. And even if I think about COVID-19, there could be better ways for governments to treat this. We get this conspiracy theories and stuff, but why do we just make information available and provide good sense making so that people understand what is the risks involved with all the things, so you can see the positives and negatives, and then say this is the reasons. We know it's risky and stuff, but this is the reasons we're doing this for everyone. So I think there could be better sense making, better collaboration, better wisdom, more practical actions to steer us in the right direction. Anyway.
Okay. Wow. Let me just quickly, again, there are one or two more questions we need to get to. Yes. As I said, we might run slightly over 9 o'clock, so please add your questions. Jacques, on the same topic, in the book you say that we're blurring the lines between the physical, digital and biological world and what it means to be human. And again, if we think of identity and the like, if, I always, and you've alluded to it now as well, there could be this potential good or potential bad, and the good could be veiled. But if I think of, in South Africa, it's shocking, but 1 out of 4 people will likely be the victim of human trafficking. So if I could have an implant in my boy so that we can track him and trace him immediately, and even if we talk about facial recognition, and if that implant can predict illness, absolutely. So, but now think of his privacy and think of the future. And what if these devices can start reading your thoughts, which I think we are getting to, almost a thought police, according to 1984. Yes. So imagine you live in North Korea and you pay lip service to the great leader, but behind closed doors, you think he's a real muppet. But now they can pick that up on the algorithms, So this is interesting. I want to touch on this a bit. Physical, so our biological bodies, digital world, the implants potentially. If we think of, and it could cause more longevity and health. But also the opposite. So tell us a bit about this, how this world of physical and digital is busy merging practically, and what do you see over the next few years?
Yeah, I think it's, by the way, you just remind me of this podcast, The Medical Futurist, which I also recommend. And he's going into talking about 5 years, 10 years into the future as well, and think about what we currently are in terms of that. I think that's why I'm talking about having control. You need to have users taking control of their data, and before it's becoming to a point where we've given everything away. We've already given lots of our data away in terms of what we do. So that's why we need to come up with solutions that steer that tide. Before governments or tech giants take control of our lives, how can we decentralize those aspects to the benefit of the individual? So what does this mean? If you think about, you talk about blurring the lines. So physical, okay, if you think about digital, so we are going to create kind of digital twins of ourselves. If you think about even our photos and videos, I'm capturing stuff in Google Drive. I put some stuff on Facebook. There is, I know there's lots of stuff being recorded if you think about Amazon, TikTok, doesn't matter what, all these organizations are capturing. I'm using YouTube quite a bit. So Google knows about my YouTube usage. You can see it in the recommendation engines, kind of things that they pop up and so forth. And we know Amazon is doing the same, and Facebook and everybody's going to do that as well. So I don't think we're going to get away from a scenario where people, the moment there's choice to do things, they're still going to do that. But if we can still come in and have better control, and I think if you think about privacy and think about GDPR and POPIA, those are all actually good things that we can utilize. But I think this is where government can make a contribution, because they can help to regulate. What they can regulate is AI applications, or AI-driven or smart technology applications. And if they're really acting in the interest of the individual, they should say, I'm actually giving control of data back to the individual. It's their democratic right to control their data. And if there's systems, and this is where Sapiens.network is an example of a system that is not controlled by tech giants. It could be owned by everyone. It could be even non-profit, and it's trying to distribute everything to individuals, but empower people with the tools to own their own data, to make sure everything's being controlled. Because even if I look at what we're doing with Cortex and stuff, we're obviously trying to optimize the system. It's a business, and you're going to utilize data like all the other tech giants and people are doing, and companies. So you've got to allow some of that, but you've got to also have a situation where it doesn't matter what data, digital data, if it's my biological, we talk about the fusion of stuff. I think there's going to be lots of data being captured there. It's going to be interesting about thoughts as well. That's kind of scary, because if my systems are being hacked as well, and it contains very sensitive stuff that is really that's me kind of represented here through a digital twin, that's a massive danger. So, and I don't think we want to create. We actually want to be really make sure that we are very protective of. It's almost like you can't break in there. It needs to be a very, very secure environment where my data is stored. That's why I think you've got to have these filters and AI assistants that's saying, I'm going to protect the data, and I'm going to say all my interactions, all my digital connections with the world, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's biological data, physical, whatever it is, I'm going to help optimize for this individual. I'm going to help protect this, even protect it from infringements from the state, infringements from tech giants, from other companies that's manipulating me, because we see social manipulation all the time. There's a big problem in the US as well with their elections and stuff like that. So I think I'm coming with solution. We haven't figured out everything, but I can see a solution that could potentially work, and that we can create a better future. And I think it's absolutely critical. If you think about, you talk about your son, man, he wants to control his biometric data. Even if he plays games or whatever he does, he wants to make sure that I'm in control of that. So can we empower our kids and with that type of thing? And everyone, we need to empower everyone. Yeah. So anyway, I think there's so much there to unpack.
You've said something important now, Jacques. Is if a lot of my friends have kids my child's age, and we obviously kind of daunted by this stuff we're talking about. And I think it's not about making them afraid of technology, or keeping them away from it, because they're going to, whether it's through friends with cell phones at school or something, they're going to be exposed to technology. It's instilling in them the wisdom of what to look out for. You know, if you're playing a game and somebody's asking too much of your own information, and where you live, for instance, what school you, those kind of things. So we have to empower them. Now, talking about kids, there's an interesting question and comment from Hatsi. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. And again, whether you're he or she, I don't know. But it's one thing to say we need to upskill people. And, you know, I'm just going to put my own lens on your comment there, Hatsi. It's kind of almost too late, because, you know, we should have upskilled people much earlier. But he asks an interesting question around education from an early age. I had some chats with Dr. Ron Crisley, who was at Stanford, and he's recently left to Wessex. But they've been working on some interesting things, and he didn't want to tell me too much. But it's to use AI machine learning to identify in each child or learner how best to educate them. Because I think we've all been through a one-size-fits-all schooling. You know, some children learn better by listening, some by... So I'm a picture person, I like my mind maps, etc. And there's most likely all kinds of other iterations. But so not necessarily changing the curriculum, but the way it's delivered to the learner. Your thoughts around that? Does that exist already? Can we do it? How do we better educate?
This is a topic, Johan, that's very close to my heart as well. And you will see this in the Sapiens AI Assistant. I talk about that quite a bit, but I do have a chapter in the book that talks about ultra-personalized. We talk about wellness and so forth, but I specifically talk about ultra-personalized education. And I think there are companies that's coming with niche solutions and it's on learning management systems. It's on various things. There's some really innovative schools that's popping up, that's showing the way. So I think there's lots of experimentation happening in this regard. It's obviously not pervasive yet, but that's the ideal. I think education will be disrupted heavily over the next decade or two, and it should be. And it should become a lot more personalized. It's almost like we're still in this factory model. And there's some great book about the fourth educational revolution. I quote that also in the book. I talk about that as well. It's worthwhile to look at that section, because that section in the book talks about all the initiatives, all the thought leaders, the ideas around that as well. But there's no question that we're going to move to a world, if you think about primary education, secondary education, all levels of education, where it will become a lot more personalized. And it's almost like with COVID-19, things are getting a lot more digital. My son is just now at first year university, and he's been heavily affected by this as well. And he's adapting quickly. And that's the other thing where I'm not too worried about kids, because kids adapt so quick to things as well. But you still want to make sure to what do they adapt. So they can adapt to smart technology, as we know, and so forth. But still, if the environment is not right, if we're not doing education properly, or healthcare, or governance, or our economic systems, we need to fix capitalism as well. So I talk about that as well. There's so many things that need to be fixed in terms of wealth gaps and all sorts of things. Yes. But on the educational front, I think we're going to drive towards that world. There's no question about it. We'll see it in China. We see it everywhere. And anyway.
I think what I'll do is I'll maybe ask you a last question specifically on that book, Jacques. And just looking at Tony's comment here, it's if anyone is joining us from outside of South Africa, please let us know. And also maybe in the last few minutes before we close, if there are topics relevant to AI and robotics and smart technology that you think we should address in future webinars, also please let us know. The next webinar, by the way, in September, we're still working on the date, will be specifically about artificial intelligence and business. And I've been speaking with and are going to invite the head of AI at Standard Bank and the head of AI at MultiChoice to join us, because they really are in the trenches. So look out for the IITPSA emails on that next topic. Jacques, the book.
Yes.
I mean, it's an amazing book, and everyone, I did put the Amazon link early on in the chats. If somebody says, tell us about your book, and they give you 5 minutes, I give you all these horrible questions to answer in a short time. But tell us, if somebody says, why should I read the book? What will I get out of it? How would you address that?
Yeah, I think if someone wants to make sense of smart technology in the world that we live in, what I've tried to do is to unpack what AI is, its applications, its benefits, its risks, its limitations, its progress, and likely future paths. And I even have there's certain sections that's always kind of more for researchers as well. So it's kind of looking at everyone, but it's for the layman. So first of all, I would say it's a holistic sense-making journey, and it lays a foundation to synthesize a more balanced view and a better understanding of AI and its impact. But it's also, what I also try to do is to make sure that I've got the best ideas that I could find, get my hands on, and thoughts on this. Obviously my own thoughts, but other thoughts as well, because we are one civilization intellect, and there's so much to learn from what other people are thinking, and then trying to make sense. Even if the AI debates, if you think about where we're going, are we going to, if you think about artificial general intelligence, and there's so many different thoughts about strong AI versus narrow AI and all of those kind of things. So I go into those kind of things as well. So if people want to understand that better and make more sense of it, the book will help you there. It's also, there's a number of sections that's dealing with various industries. So if you're in banking or financial services or in consumer-facing businesses, there's a whole chapter just talking about that and all the use cases of AI in that space. If you want to digitally transform your business, AI-driven digital transformation of your business, there's a whole chapter dealing with that. There's a chapter dealing with the industrial world. What does it mean in that space? And then obviously wellness, healthcare, education, chapter just dealing with that. And then if you think about government, if you think about the state and governments, if you are into governments as well, there's a whole chapter talking about what governments should be doing and what other governments are doing, and what is really happening on that front. So if you want to quickly get up to speed, we cover that. But then for me, it's very important people understand what is the negative impacts, what is the social good, and I list a lot of stuff. And there's actually stuff that's kind of under the carpet. Even Google is involved in lots of social good stuff as well. And it's almost like people don't know about some of the good things that the tech giants are also trying to do. They're really trying to make a difference there. But so I'm talking about also, what does it mean to be human, and what is the beneficial outcomes for humanity? So I'm going into specific sectors, but then I'm looking broadly as well. And I think it's very important to have the end in mind, to think about the broader context. And then I'm talking through the different, we are on a problematic trajectory, and I sketched that out. And it's important for people to understand, this is the path that I'm on. This is the path that humanity is on, and it could go wrong. But this is the possible positive outcomes. This is the beneficial human-centric future that we can also create. So go into that. And then we come into the massive transformative purpose for humanity, and I come up with very specific solutions like Sapiens, but I also talk about what is ethical, trustworthy AI. What does it look like? And then also end with AI-driven workforce. What is the kind of 21st century skills, smart technology skills? So it's really covering a lot of territory, and quite exciting from that perspective. I see Tony's back.
Tony's back. Just before I hand to Tony, Jacques, firstly, thank you for your time. It was a lovely conversation. There's so much you shared. Thank you that we could share the deck as well, which I did. There's a lot there. I want to encourage people to get the book. It's really worth reading, and also follow Jacques on LinkedIn and Twitter. You're quite active and you share a lot of very interesting things, Jacques. So I love following you. But again, thank you so very much. And also to Tony and the team. And with that, Mr. Perry, over to you, sir.
Thank you. And Tony didn't leave, Jacques. Tony just didn't have his camera on to look at me. But I'll be all right for the webinar apart from grabbing a quick cup of Java.
Yeah.
Jacques, certainly from myself and from IITPSA, a huge thank you to you and Johan for a very, very interesting discussion. And Johan, I really think we need to seriously chat offline about looking at making this into a webinar series that maybe we do one every couple of months or something like that. Jacques, just as a comment from my side, you touched on something that's very close to my heart, right with your last comment about ethical AI.
Oh,
as a
yes.
professional body, ethics and ethical behavior in all its facets, is very important to us. The professional duty of trust and care. So we as technologists, when we are engaging in these kinds of technology, these smart technologies, new technologies, how do we do that ethically with the right amount of trust and care? You were talking about, protecting the biometric data, et cetera, and those things resonate so strongly with me personally, and B, I'm sure with most of our professional body. So I really would I would like to ask, in fact, that we look at maybe a specific webinar along the line somewhere about the ethical AI, amongst other things, and the concepts of ethics in the smart technologies, and the whole challenge of obviously cultural differences, and what does ethics mean to different people and so on. But thank you so much. I also would like to thank our delegates for being really engaging on the chat. Johan, you monitored that extremely well. Thank you for that. And excuse me to everybody. It's a pity when we have to say goodbye on these things. But Jacques, from us to you, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your research with us. Thank you for sharing your slides. They are greatly appreciated by our delegates and by ourselves. To you, Johan, to Dr. Jacques, thank you so much for joining us today for a really, really engaging discussion. I've certainly learned a lot and a lot more things to think about. To our delegates who've contributed, particularly our professors, Kiet and Carlitz, and I know Professor Carlitz's wife was online as well, Professor Margie. So to all the profs and to all the other delegates who've joined us as well, thank you so much. We just, as quickly as a last punt, we do have our Women in IT Women's Month webinar. I think it's next week, Friday, the 20th. So please, if you're interested in that, or you should be, join that as well. We have our annual general meeting coming up on the 24th. That's governance and needs to be done, but we look forward to our members joining us for that as well. Johan, you have always been so great in organizing these things. Thank you so much. We really appreciate what you're doing and promoting the Institute, promoting thought leadership. And Dr. Jacques, wow, just incredible. Thank you all. Have an awesome day, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Johan. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jacques.
Bye-bye.